Welcome, family. We are back here with a shot of E&J podcast. My name is Jeremy Mensa.
Eric Igwe.
And we got a great show for y'all planned today. We got a special guest, Mr. Trey Arnold in the building.
What's going on? Glad to be here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Trey Arnold, he's a good friend. I've known him in the political space. He is a political operative, consultant, been in the political field for more than 10 years. First African-American political director with the Dallas Democratic Party. Worked on presidential campaigns. We're talking about President Obama's campaign. Arkansas, proud.
Yeah.
And I'm excited because to get his perspective on the politics in Dallas. You know, for our previous episode, we didn't have to talk. We focused. We had someone from Atlanta provide their perspective in politics. So we wanted Trey to provide his perspective in Dallas, and then kind of go into national and see what the path is for African Americans who aspire to be in politics. So, Trey, we're glad to have you on board.
Glad to be here, man. Glad to be here.
Man, we're excited. So this is going to be an exciting episode for everyone to tune into, to listen into. But as you all know, we kick off our podcast episode with our top headlines. So the first headline. Let's talk about the January 6th hearings in the Capitol Hill. For those who don't know, the committee has recently in the House kicked off hearings. I think they're within day 5 or day 6 already, as far as hearings. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to do that. We're going to actually
we'll pivot a little bit.
Pivot a little bit. Let's actually start off with the Uvalde shooting, because I think it's about to be a month from when the shooting happened, right? I mean, it was May 24th when the shooting happened, and so there's been a lot of things coming out, right, unfolding that we still learning, right?
Right.
Why it took so long, more than an hour, for the police to go after the gunman, right? You had an 18-year-old gunman. I think he was in the school or was associated with school. Come in, go through a door that was unlocked, and killed 19 kids on their last day of school, right? 19 kids and 2 teachers. And then right now, it's been a hot mess as far as what's been going on. First, the governor said the police went ahead and really took charge against the gunman. Then the governor finds out that he was misled, right? And then you find out the police chief had the authority, according to reports. Then the police chief is saying is not the one responsible for giving orders. And there's just so much back and forth. So you're having hearings at Austin right now, trying to uncover what's going on. You have so many parents who are suffering, which is just so unfortunate. And so we're just, first praying for all those families who've been affected, the community who's been affected at all, people who have been affected with this news. And it's frustrating because, like I said, I think it's frustrating seeing that the police, or either it's miscommunication or the fact that there was pictures that showed the officers in the hallway.
Right.
Close to the classroom.
Crazy.
But didn't sit there and waited, I guess maybe for orders, because they didn't get the orders, whatever it is. But as you hear kids crying, as you hear kids make calls, right, to 911 asking for help in the office, you have a couple officers, not all of them, but a couple of them, in that hallway waiting. If I'm an officer, I can't sleep at night with the thought of I'm just in this hallway, I'm quote unquote waiting for orders. I think that's what it may have been. And people are crying, and I'm hearing the cry, I'm hearing their tears, and I'm not doing anything about it, and time is going by. I don't know, that doesn't sit well with me. What you guys' thoughts?
There's so many layers to that whole situation. My first question is, why was he 17, 18-year-old allowed to get that type of assault rifle?
Yep.
That just shows you the laws that needs to be placed where it's not that easy for someone to get an assault rifle, because even if you think about it, you can't use nothing like that for hunting, because that's going, you shoot a deer with an assault rifle, it's going to tear it to pieces.
Yep.
So it's just like, what's, like I said, it's just so many layers, that you can kind of dive in with that, But, that's always my first question. Why was he even allowed, to do that? And then, it starts from him. He can kill his grandmother first. And then, there's so many layers and there's so much stuff I think that we're not going to know behind that whole situation, but, it's really sad and unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah. First and foremost, thoughts and prayers to the families that were affected, right? Because it is a tragedy of epic proportion. What I've really noticed, though, is how, in particular in Texas, how Texas politicians have politicized it and made it, the rally cry for, we need to arm teachers now. You know what I'm saying? We need to put guns in teachers' hands and so on and so forth. And I mean, I guess there's an argument that can be made as far as that is concerned. I go back and forth with that because sometimes I think, okay, maybe if there was a teacher that was in that situation and they had a gun, maybe they would have prevented some lives from being lost. But I think we're missing the point when we go directly to that as a solution, right? There needs to be more consideration given to restricting the access to guns. Trey, as you stated, that especially young folks and people that have mental health issues right? We should not be allowing just any and everybody to have access to high-powered assault rifles. That's crazy. And for the life of me, I don't understand why that's not a nonpartisan issue. It just seems like everybody would be able to get on board with that, right? But like I said, it's been politicized. So that's kind of my thoughts concerning the Uvalde shooting. Transitioning a little bit, something a little bit lighter. In a way, I guess you could say, but still heavy. Juneteenth, right?
Yeah.
So Juneteenth is now a federal holiday. And there's been, I think, a certain amount of happiness on our parts, and I say our parts, as African Americans, but just people in general that, okay, we do have a holiday that sort of commemorates the freedom of those who were enslaved, Black folks that were enslaved in this country. However, it's not without some controversy, right? Because they've kind of commercialized it. Yeah. There's been a lot made about that, in particular Walmart coming with Juneteenth ice cream.
Yeah, it got shut down. Yep.
Yeah, it got shut down, but it still was done. And so, I have mixed feelings about it, right? Because I feel like on one hand, I think about the Black independent business owners that are going to make T-shirts and different things that, can generate some revenue, some profit from something like Juneteenth that can, dollars can be recirculated within the community. And I'm for that. But I don't want us to miss the point of what Juneteenth is really about. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And the essence of the Juneteenth celebration. And I think that gets lost. It gets lost in the sauce when you start, making it a holiday where people are just, thinking about going and shopping and buying goods and services, to remember it. So that's something I think we got to keep in mind. What are y'all thoughts on it?
Yeah, I was going to say, first off, for those who don't know Juneteenth, I mean, it's June 19th, 1865, right? Mm-hmm. When Union soldiers came into Galveston to spread a word that, hey, that the last enslaved, the enslaved people, Black enslaved people are free, right? And this is 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, which declared that all slaves are free.
Yeah.
2 years later, is when the enslaved folks in Galveston finally got word through Union soldiers.
2 years later.
2 years later that they're free, right? And so I think that's important to recognize that. It's a federal holiday, and I think you had off. I didn't, but I mean, every corporation can elect to whether to be off or not. Right. But at least you have other people starting to get off. I do want to make sure people recognize the significance of it. Yeah. Shout out to Miss Oprah Lee. We're in Fort Worth, right? Oh, yeah. She spent decades pushing for Juneteenth to be a national holiday, and it finally came into fruition last year with the bill passing on both sides. Sheila Jackson Lee and others have worked to make that become to fruition. I think Senator John Cornyn also played a factor in that. And so shout out to Ms. Oprah Lee for the drive and the push for it. And so you had Juneteenth festivities this past weekend. It's a great start. I love it. But I think watched an interview was driving her is make sure people never forget their history. Right. And like Jeremy said, I don't want to become a thing where it becomes too commercialized and people focus on the commercialization of it and not enough about the history. Right. So the history doesn't repeat itself. And if you're going to commercialize it, it better benefit people who look like us, right? Or people who's really who had the history of ancestors who suffer, right?
Yeah.
Doing commercialization with somebody's face is not good enough. If it's not commercialization does involve putting money in black businesses, then communities have to reject that, right?
Right.
And so I just want to make sure people are focused on the history, and it just doesn't become another off day where I can buy gifts or other companies can take advantage of the holiday. Your thoughts?
No, I agree. Definitely am happy that, everything had transitioned where it was a federal holiday, but, just kind of questions like, why does it take for us so long to get things that should have been done, a long time ago, put in place? But I am happy, and it's definitely being commercialized. Even if you go, on Amazon and type in Juneteenth t-shirts, you'll see,
tons.
Yeah.
And then you'll see, a lot of our Caucasian brothers and sisters wearing them, so it's just like, I guess we got to start somewhere, but I am, happy that, we at least got Juneteenth, to a federal holiday. So, yeah.
We'll celebrate that.
Yeah.
Last, we're going to talk about, is the NBA Finals. So, man, I don't know where to start. But, like,
you mad LeBron and them wasn't there?
I mean, LeBron going to get another ring, but I'm not worried about that. Everybody just stay tuned and watch it. But, no, we're going to talk about NBA Finals. So, like, the NBA Finals concluded, right? Now we're in free agency should start by, I think it's the end of the month or 1st of July. NBA draft is actually going on now.
Yeah, today, yeah.
As of right now.
Yeah.
But thoughts on NBA Finals. So, for me, congratulations to Golden State Warriors, right? I actually was picking Boston to win. Not trying to be a hater of Steph Curry. He is a good role model.
Sure.
I'm positive. I mean, I like Steph. I like Steph, the family, what they represent. But I thought Boston, matchup-wise, was better because of their defense and the fact that each of the players can defend very well, right? I think almost everyone in the starting five had first a vote within All NBA defensive team vote, or at least a vote. Marcus Smart, Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah. You didn't see that in the NBA Finals. Him being Defensive Player, him showing why he's Defensive Player of the Year, and maybe it's because of the way he's positioned, but he didn't really, was effective. Right. And just it was a reminder, like, man, them boys are young. I thought they'd be ready for the moment after all the adversity it took to get to how many times they've gone to the conference final and lost. You thought they were going to capitalize on the moment. And I know people criticizing Tatum about why he's not stepping up. He's a superstar. First off, like Tatum said, who said I'm a superstar, right? At least I'm paraphrasing what he said. Who says I'm a superstar? So I think Tatum is probably going to be on his way there, but everybody goes through their journeys, right?
Oh, yeah.
It took LeBron a while to win a ring. It took Jordan, 9 years to win a ring. It took LeBron 9 years to win a ring. And so it takes time.
It did take my boy Kobe 3 years.
I mean, he did have Shaq now. Who was winning them MVPs? Kobe was bad, but who won them MVPs? So, but no, I'm curious to see what Tatum does. The team should not blow it up. They got to get, like Brad Stevens said, they need to get more shooters.
Oh, yeah.
No, congrats to the Warriors. What y'all thoughts?
Shout out to Ime Udoka.
Yeah.
Right, the Celtics coach. Yeah. I think he did a really good job overall. Obviously, they fell short, in the finals. Like you said, I think Boston had an opportunity to win. They committed a lot of turnovers. A lot of crucial turnovers that really just changed the complexion of the series. And so, you can't turn the ball over and expect to win, especially when you have a team like Golden State that's going to convert those turnovers into points.
Yep.
Right.
So, I didn't really have a dog in the fight necessarily. Like, I'm happy for Steph and for Golden State to win. I wanted to see a good series. And I felt like we saw a fairly good series, a 6-game series. But yeah, next year we're going to see what happens. I think next year will even be more competitive because you'll have Milwaukee will be back.
Yep.
You'll have KD and company back. Right.
Well, we'll see about that.
We'll see, but they'll be healthy is my point. So what
questions will be Kyrie?
KD and Kyrie are together or not. So we'll see. And on the West we got Denver will be back, Clippers will be back, LA, the Lakers will be back. I'm looking forward to what comes going forward. But yeah, congratulations to the Warriors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the same thing. I've been a Laker fan since I was in diapers.
Yeah.
So just as long as even though like I said, I like Tatum because he comes from that Kobe tree, and I like a lot of them players, but I just didn't want Boston to get one more banner than
that's what it's all about.
I ain't mad at you.
Yeah, but it was some good basketball. I just think that Boston just couldn't be consistent. Even with Game 6, first quarter they started out good, and then it just
fizzled.
Yeah, and Steph, just was Steph.
Yeah,
So this upcoming season is definitely going to be interesting to see what Kyrie does or see what happens with Kyrie. The draft. It's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be interesting. A lot of teams that weren't in the play, it's going to be in play. Interest in what Portland did with getting Jeremy Grant. I think that was a really good pickup.
That was a good pickup.
That was a really good
pickup.
It
is.
So it's just, just kind of interesting to see what they do. Zion, is he going to be 100%? I mean, because that 3-headed monster in New Orleans is
it's
a problem.
It's
a sleeper.
It is.
Yeah. They're going to be a problem.
They're going to be a problem.
Because I think Brandon Ingram is finally figuring it out now.
Yeah.
And that's scary. So it's definitely going to be interesting. KD's going to be KD.
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting.
You're right.
Yeah.
What's Westbrook going to be?
I wish we can get from under that contract, man. I was kind of hearing some things about, making a trade. I'd rather have John Wall. I think John Wall is a better point guard per se.
Yeah.
And makes better decisions because Russ and some of the decision making,
very questionable, right?
Yeah, he almost led the league in turnovers if he didn't play the last few games.
Yeah, I remember.
So, we'll see.
We'll see,
We'll
man.
see.
No, this concludes our top headlines. So when we come back from break, we're going to dive into Trey Arnold. We're going to get his perspective on Dallas politics, go into national politics, and just cover, get his expertise as a man who's been in the field, been in the game. So when we come back on the Shot of E&J podcast, you're going to hear some great things from Trey Arnold. We'll be right back. Welcome back to a Shot of E&J podcast. It's your co-host Eric Igwe,
Jeremy and Armenta,
and we have our special guest,
Tremont Arnold.
We call him Trey. So we're going to get into discussion about Dallas politics.
Okay.
And so, Trey, we mentioned your background, a little bit about your background earlier. Can you expand on your background? Tell the people more about you.
Yeah. Like I said, I've kind of been in this politic thing since 2006, give or take. The one reason why I wanted to get into politics is because Al Gore was running against George Bush, and he basically quit and succeeded, and that just hit a nerve with me, and I just know that I really never had the intention on running for office, but I always wanted to be one of the people behind the scenes that was kind of making things happen. So I volunteered for a governor's race in Arkansas, and then they ended up hiring me, and I've been doing it ever since. So like I said, been doing it since 2006. I was vice president of Young Democrats of Arkansas. I was one of the first blacks to do that, and just trying to be and just break the norm. And that's what I've been doing since 2006, and I continue to do it.
Yeah, that's what's up. That's what's up, man.
All right, so we want to start off our conversation about Dallas politics, talking about Texas 30th Congressional District, right?
Right.
Has a very storied history, if you will, with Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson,
Mm-hmm.
right? And currently now it's looking like, and her name is leaving me.
Jasmine Crockett.
Jasmine Crockett, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's looking like she will likely take over, right? So talk to us a little bit about that. What do you see with Jasmine Crockett and things and trends with that district in particular?
Yeah, I will say, especially with it being a minority-based district, you had two viable candidates that were running in that race. You had Jasmine Crockett, and you had Jane Hamilton that were running, so, you know, and it's good when you see young Black sisters, you know, that got out there and was like, you know, is trying to make a difference, you know. So, you know, it's almost you put in a position where you hate to choose, but you know, you had to choose, especially if you're going to the polling sites. So I see nothing but that district and Jasmine, you know, going to DC and making a big difference. So, you know, we'll see. You know, she's more like I said, I think she has a opponent in November, but
yeah,
I mean,
but it's more like
we know how this
we all
know. Yeah.
You know, so, you know, if we, like I said, you know, definitely pray that, you know, she goes down there, get a good team around her. And from there, you know, she'll be a success. And cause those are big shoes she has to fill.
It does.
You know, those are monumental shoes that she has to fill. Yeah. So like I said, hopefully she can get the right people that are around her, you know, that'll help her make the right decisions, once she gets in that seat.
Yeah. Well, what do you feel are some things that you've seen about her, know about her, that you feel like could help inspire that district, that says, hey, we got the next trailblazer?
She's very outgoing. She has a very big personality, you know, and that her personality draws you to her. You know, she definitely has a lot of experience, in working, you know, she's attorney by trade. So, you know, she's worked a lot of civil rights cases and things like that. So with her being into the trenches and her connecting with people in that district, I think that's going to help her a lot.
Okay. Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Tell us, we want to go into like Dallas City Council, and there's been in the news lately. There's a lot going on in Dallas City Council, but tell us more about, for the people who don't know about this structure of government, tell us about the structure of the government, the current dynamics. Is there certain districts that we should pay attention to? Like, for me, when people think about, we think about focus on, for Black folks, South Dallas, other areas, but like, tell us about the structure of the city council in general. What are things we pay attention to? What are the dynamics, especially given what's going on in the news?
Yeah, like I said, right now, what's going on in the news, there's a minor headbutting of the city manager and the mayor. You know, as far as just with logistics behind that, I'm really not too keen on it because I've I just got out of a runoff race, so it's just like I'm just not getting back intertwined in everything. But especially with the city council in Dallas, when people hear of that, they always think of South Dallas, because as South Dallas goes, that's how Dallas County goes. Yeah. And I think a lot of politicians know that. Well, I'll say a lot of elected officials. I'm not going to say politics. A lot of elected officials know that, you know, so I think that's why one reason they focus on getting as many votes out of South Dallas as possible. But like I said, the whole dynamic of the city council, like I said, it's majority Black city council. We do have, I think, 2 expiring terms. I think Casey Thomas is expiring, and I can't think of the other one, but I know Casey Thomas is expiring, so I know that's going to be a very hot seat.
It will be.
Very high seat. Yes, once his term is up, you know, and it's also interesting to see what he does afterwards, because I'm pretty sure he still has the hunger to get out, you know, and do the work. So, you know, just like I said, and that's just kind of sum up everything. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see moving forward how the city council is going to move forward.
And I know that I want to make sure I understand too for everyone. The Dallas City Council, it's a government, it's 14 members, right?
Yes.
It is not a mayor controlled, right? This is not Houston where Sylvester Turner got a lot more power.
Right, a whole lot different.
Mayor Eric Johnson, I don't want to say ceremonial, but he has less power. The real power is really with the city manager.
City manager, yes.
All the executive departments roll up to him.
Yes.
City council can get rid of him with a majority vote.
Correct.
A city manager.
Correct.
But the power is really with the city manager, not the mayor.
Correct.
So I just want to make sure for everyone that's clear. Do you ever see, I mean, is there any paths to making sure that there can be some better collaboration among the council, mayor, city manager? You know, they did the joint press conference. I'm hoping that there is some path forward, right?
Yeah.
Is it, I mean, for people who don't know, is it always that dynamic with Dallas City Council, or is it just?
Honestly, this is the first time that I've seen it.
Okay.
You know, and it's always hard when you're dealing with egos. You know, yeah, it's really hard. when you're dealing with egos and, just that whole dynamic, like I said, is definitely new to me. Like I said, I hadn't seen it happen out in the public like this before. Of course, things happen behind the scenes, but never seen it where it's out in the public the way that it has been. So definitely an interesting dynamic. And like I said, hopefully they can, push aside egos and issues and move forward.
Yeah.
So I think just for the people to know, what does the city manager do? Right? Like in terms of the Dallas City Council, what is the city manager responsible for? Like, with the city?
Just to kind of sum it up, I think it's just more so regulation on everything. You have the different departments, that'll reach out to the city manager. So it's more so just regulation. Just to sum it up, I could go into a whole different spiel, but like I said, just regulation.
Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah.
And so, if I'm a resident of Dallas right now, what are some big issues with regard to city council that you think are going to really come to the forefront, now and, coming up in the future?
Well, it's funny how you could drive south, and you can drive north, and it's two totally different drives.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many potholes.
Man, talk to me.
I know it seems minor, but potholes and definitely we have a really big homeless issue in the area in Dallas County. I know that those are two or the major things that I've kind of been hearing just around town, just outside of food deserts.
Yeah.
That's been one for a long time. And it's real unfortunate too, so I think those are some of the major issues.
Man. Yeah. And Dallas is one to watch out for a city. I live in Fort Worth, so I'm going to be a little biased. I know it's Fort Worth, Dallas beef. But, thing out there. I do that since I moved here about 9 years ago, understanding that beef between Fort Worth and Dallas. But I know, just checking on and seeing what Dallas is, because it has been a little more, obviously more progressive than Fort Worth. To understand where the city is headed. There's environmental racism too, right? There's been stories about it, in Dallas about that. Also, I want to turn into national politics.
Okay.
Because you worked on presidential campaigns, you've worked on partisan races, so you have a great understanding of what's going on nationally and statewide. So now this is 2022. We know the midterms is going to be in November, right? Everyone's watching to see, is the Democrats going to lose the House and lose the Senate, and is Republicans turn to take over, and what does that mean for President Biden, right? As we know, currently in Congress, there's 50 Democrats, really 48, and two independents who caucus with Democrats, right? And so it's a 50-50 split. But if it's a 50-50 split, it'll go to the person who to the party who's leading the charge, which is President Biden, the Democrat, and Vice President Harris is the deciding vote.
Right.
So by virtue of that, the Democrats control the Senate, and then of course the Democrats control the House right now, barely, but control the House. So there's a lot of fears due to inflation and so many other things right now. There's fears that the Democrats will lose. So what's your thought? Where's your outlook? What's the outlook for Democrats, not only statewide here, but also nationally in 2022 versus 24?
Man, honestly, I'm nervous because Trump is quiet. He's quiet. Like it's just too quiet. With things being so close and so many people being disappointed, because especially in the African American community, like all I hear is, what is Kamala Harris doing? What is Joe Biden doing? Outside the fact that we have our first Supreme Court justice, that's a sister, and just like say other things, but it's kind of hard to see the results of things that he's actually done when having to sweep up and mop all this trash that happened before you, which is unfortunate. So, I'm really nervous, about these midterms, especially, with the governor's race here. I just, it's just it's really being too quiet. I don't feel the momentum like how Beto ran, last go round, I felt a momentum. I hadn't felt that momentum this go round. So, we definitely need to work. I think one of the major issues with us is voter education. I think that what we need to do is do a better job educating people on the people that's running, what they're running for, and getting the best people in these positions that's going to look out for the betterment of our needs, because, then you'll have a lot of people that have been in seats for 30, 40 years and don't have a succession plan. So then, it puts all of us against each other where we can't, have a viable candidate, that's been, going through the trenches and kind of learning the ups and downs. And, we were bumping heads, trying to, see who we can get in there. So I think we need to do a better job on the succession plan and educating people on who's running, why they're running, and how it's going to help us.
Yeah, I worry about Beto because, like you said, in 2018, Beto had a lot of energy.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it was like a Beto. It was a heck of a move. I mean, it was just a next level energy, right? And now when he lost so close to Senator Ted Cruz in 2018, and then he ran for president, it was short-lived run. And he kind of disappeared. I don't want to say disappeared. I mean, he had his power by people to help register people to vote and do calls. He's done some other things in the background, but that enthusiasm waned. And now, like I said, I don't feel it. I don't hear it enough.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be interesting to see what that means, right, for him. And even thinking nationally, I'm thinking about Stacey Abrams. Once again, 2018, she had that same, there was a lot of energy and she came close to winning.
Yeah.
But now I don't know if I felt the same energy. I don't live in Georgia, but I just worry. I just wonder.
Yeah.
Imagine the thoughts of both of them losing, right?
I know. And it's, I don't know. Even with Georgia, I almost feel like it's a change of regime because I'm feeling more energy from Warnock than I am from Stacey Abrams. I have two of my sisters live in Georgia, and they just say the energy, like they feel it more with Warnock more so than Stacey Abrams. And then, like I said, we talked about Beto earlier. It's like, because it's almost like 2018, he was a rock star.
Yeah.
Like at events, people wrapped around the building and, and now I just don't feel that energy, and that's what makes me nervous.
Yep.
That's what makes me real nervous.
But you being in the state, what do you think it takes to get Democrats to wake up? I mean, like to get, excited, wake up, because the state party, and we've all know people who are involved and they're trying their best, but the state party has struggled to really galvanize Democrats here.
Right.
And I just feel like people are sleeping.
Yeah.
And voter education, like you said, is a huge piece. I just feel like people are sleeping at the wheel. I feel like people are just apathetic, and I don't see enough energy and enthusiasm. I always felt like, in my opinion, that it's going to take mass chaos for a lot of Democrats or some of us, even of our people in the community to come out and vote, or it's going to have to be like a once-in-a-generation type inspirational leader to come in, right? Or both. And so what is it going to take, man? What you think?
Man, that's the $1 million question. I think it's a mindset. I think we're always so hell-bent on registering people to vote. It's a two-wrong process because just those people that you register to vote, you got to get them to the polls because that's the most important thing is get them to the polls, not just register them to vote. I think us as Democrats, we're so passive. We're so passive on just everything. Republicans are aggressive. Like if they stand on something, they standing on something.
Yeah.
They come out and vote every election. It's almost like pulling teeth, getting us to come to the polling sites when it's not a presidential campaign. We don't, and it all stems from voter education. We don't know the importance of, voting in off years, because your mayor, your city council, these positions are just as important, and getting people in these positions is going to look out for the betterment of your needs is just as important as, your presidential campaigns. So I think, we just need to be more aggressive in our approach with making sure that people get out and vote and the importance of voting.
Yeah. That's real.
So I think we we have questions about the messaging coming from the Democrats, right? But I'm gonna modify the question a little bit, because we had a general question that was more like, oh, you know, why do Democrats struggle with their messaging? But I'm gonna give a little bit more context, and the question I'm gonna ask is gonna be geared towards more Black people. So we know California now has a task force to study reparations, right? And I think they've actually released a study. I don't know if they're actually released the actual recommendations from the study, but they basically agreed with the 1960s Kerner Commission in talking about how you have two Americas. You have a large disparity between, you know, when we talk about races, Black and white, the racial wealth gap, so on and so forth. So I say all that to say, what can the Democrats do messaging-wise to reach out to Black voters, to not just give lip service, but to actually provide some type of, I guess, tangible policy or something that can energize Black voters? Because I think we're at a point now where there were promises made, and you referenced some of the things as far as well, we have obviously Kamala Harris, the vice president. We got the first Black woman who's Supreme Court justice. But policy-wise, it seems to be a little bit of a disconnect between the Democrats and Black people. What can the Democrats do to address that?
Man, that is actually a very, very good question. I think, and like I said, my personal opinion, we need to get back to grassroots. We need to get back to making sure that these elected officials and politicians just don't come around when it's election time.
Yes. Yep.
You know, that's a big complaint. You know, I just see you when it's time to vote. You know, we need to start implementing things, you know what I'm saying, throughout the off years and the off seasons where, you know, when they come around, they know that, you know, hey, we know we're trying to get something done. You know, when you look at, you know, in the 60s and the 70s, you know, civil rights movement, everything was started and the foundation was started from the Black church. Yeah. I think we need to get back to the basics. I think we need to start doing more grassroots organizing, you know, and with that, like I said, we can educate and we can get people out that's going to, like I said, knock on doors, make phone calls, send text messages out. I think we just need to get back to the basics. And I think that's, like I said, grassroots organizing.
No, that's real. Yeah, because and the voter education is a huge piece, because people look at Vice President Harris like, we got our first Black woman vice president, but why can't she do this, do that? I'm like, I tell people, hold on. First off, Vice President Harris is just a spokesperson for Biden. Yeah. She can't come around and just impose what she want to impose, right?
Right.
The face is best.
I'm gonna push back against that. No. Go ahead.
No, because we look at her messaging, right? It always going to line with President Biden, right? And so, just like, you know, you hear the EPA, it doesn't matter if EPA chief or whoever the lead of departments, if you ever watch them interviews, they're always careful in their responses. It has to align with what the president believes in. So Vice President Harris can't come off and say, yeah, we're going to get you this reparations, unless President Biden is down for reparations, right? She can't say, people got to recognize that, you know, her role is limited, right? And what she can and cannot do, right? And so I think that's part of going back to education piece, is people understanding the roles and responsibilities. Too many times, and I feel like we talk to people in the community, but just people in general, they put so much fixation on the president and vice president. I'm like, the people who impact your lives are the city council people more. City council people, your state reps, your local city.
Absolutely.
Like President Biden can't pass sweeping voting rights legislation. He can't do that on his own. He needs Congress. So what are y'all doing talking to Congress? Yeah. Vice President Harris can't do that. She can talk. She can say, we need to get the John Lewis voting right bill passed, right? On both chambers. But she can't do it by herself. So part of that is, like you said, the education piece. But what you want to push back on?
Well, I think, you know, Vice President Harris has been a little bit quiet, more quiet than she should be on Black issues with minorities. And I think, you know, like you said, you know, it is hard because she can't go against Biden's agenda or his policy. But I think more can be done, you know, to address, you know, some of these voting rights issues that are coming, you know, from certain conservative states that we're seeing.
How can she do that?
Well, first of all, I think if and this is kind of my whole issue with the whole Biden, you know what I'm saying, regime in the first place. It's like, you know, if you're going to use Kamala Harris in your campaign to get the black vote, right? And you're going to sort of solicit black voters to come out and support you by saying that, hey, you know, we're going to do things for you. We're going to consider reparations, whatever it is. Then on the back end, when you actually get elected, then you have to do something, right? And it might not be Vice President Kamala Harris's fault, but ultimately she's in a leadership position. So she's going to take some blame or criticism, whether she likes it or not. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. So what I'm saying to you is that the Biden administration, and I wonder behind closed doors what's really being said on, you know, from her to the president, you know, something that we're not privy to, right? But I really wonder, is she in fact putting the pressure on Biden in some of these closed meetings to say, hey, look, we need to do more to reach out to African Americans. We need to do more to help minorities because they are losing faith in things that we promised before we were elected.
Well, you say he made promises, but you know how the game is. I'm a president, I make promises. I promise to do this if Congress passes, right? Like, I promise. Of course, when they make those promises, they are going to, President Biden, I actually believe he's going to do a lot of those promises, but it's contingent on Congress passing. Well, Congress passed law. Now, hold on, like, you talking about voting rights, but you know what? The most he can do is, for voting rights, is do an executive order, but it only stops federally. The 50 states, he can't, that executive order can't stretch to 50 states, right? Yeah, you actually need a law through Congress to pass.
But the federal public policy sets the precedent for the state policy.
But you need the laws to execute on those policies.
Absolutely. I don't disagree with you. But in many states, if not most states, whether you talk about your penal code or your occupation code or whatever, it's based on some model penal code that's coming down from the federal government. So if the federal government does something for voting rights and they say, you know what, we're going to come out with a revamped Voting Rights Act. You know, like
John Lewis, they had a framework, but it didn't pass. It didn't pass.
I agree, but what I'm saying to you is that these are things that there has to be more pressure and more noise coming from the Biden administration about that, and specifically about issues that affect minorities. Until they do that, and until they show that, hey, you know, we've really done everything we could do, but you know, Congress is not playing ball. Then people are going to say, well, y'all mighty quiet over there, but y'all wasn't quiet to get in office. But y'all quiet all of a sudden now.
But that goes back to the education. People got to understand that President Biden, and I'm not saying he's perfect, right? But President Biden has put out a help framework. He is for pushing for voter rights legislation change. Now, if you want, hold on. But
how much has he talked about it though?
He has talked about a great amount. He has spent time talking about it.
You think so? Really? I'm not talking about before he got elected. I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about he has 2020 to 2022.
If you want to give him criticism, I think it should have been a top 3 issue when he got elected. I think he took his time making it a serious issue. I know he focused on COVID, but after COVID bill passed, that should have been the next big thing. I'm saying the reason why it should have been the next big thing is because the states were in the midst of getting their data and start doing redistricting late. And he should have made that a number 2 priority and put more pressure. But his reach is only goes so far.
Yeah, but so you honestly think that he put it on the agenda as one of the top things to discuss and talk about? Voting rights for African Americans in particular.
I don't think he did immediately. That's one criticism. If you want to give him criticism, is that he didn't I didn't think he put enough emphasis in it in the very beginning of his administration. Now, granted, COVID was the biggest thing. He passed the COVID bill. But after the COVID bill, I felt like he should have put more energy towards that. But at the end of the day, if I want to get on President Biden, it's going to be the fact that he was a person who says, I'm the guy who's been in 40 years. I'm the guy who can bridge the gap. I'm the guy who can work on both sides, and he has not delivered on that. Now, granted, the dynamics are different, right? You got some very polarizing people on both sides, right? Democrats and Republicans. And so the center Biden who's been in 40 years ago, the relationships you think he has 40 years ago, he cannot make that happen 40 years later, right? And so the dynamics are absolutely different. And so I think he, sometimes it's an ego thing, right? Like you have an ego where like, man, if I'm president, I'm the one who can pull this off. I'm the one who can bridge the gap. Then you get in there and you're like, dang. So it wasn't just President Obama who couldn't pull it off. I couldn't pull it off either. And so I think he was probably a little bit short-sighted, had a little ego that came with it. Yeah. But for voting rights, I think he did all he possibly could.
I'll say this about that. I'm acknowledging the fact that he's in a very partisan, environment right now. I think politics is more partisan than it's been probably in recent history, right? So that's to his credit that he's in an environment that is very antagonistic towards just both sides getting along. I'll give him that. But here's what I'm saying, brother. 1963, right? There's a lot of talk about civil rights legislation, right? Do you think in 62, 63, they thought that they would get the Voting Rights Act in 65? They didn't think they would. But you had movers and shakers in Washington. I'm not just talking about folks in the civil rights movement because they were the grassroots part of the movement that made it, that pushed it on America's conscience. But ultimately, you had to have legislators and they had to be influenced by somebody. So what I'm saying to the Biden administration, whether it's Kamala, whether it's, Biden, whether it's, whomever you want to think about that's in Congress, they've got to make this a talking point and put the pressure on the entire Congress, Republicans included, that, this is something that we need to get done because we're having too many situations where we hear about voters being disenfranchised, right? In black neighborhoods, Hispanic neighborhoods, what have you. And there seems to be this sense out there, especially coming from the right, that, we're somehow protecting the electorate because there's all this voter fraud going on. And that's a lie. That's an absolute lie. But Democrats are so afraid to speak up about that. They're afraid to call it out. And so that's what I'm saying to you. I agree with you. Kamala Harris can only do so much. But ultimately, Biden can call a spade a spade. He can start saying, look, this whole thing about voter fraud that's a lie. Americans, that's a lie. It's not the truth. And furthermore, what they're trying to do is disenfranchise your brothers and sisters who are just trying to participate and be a part of this American society.
No, I got you. And that's why it goes back to that messaging too. But let's also, Trey, let's be 100. What's part of the reason why the civil rights, like the civil rights, voting rights, or civil rights ended up getting passed?
Man, look, 1963, the cry was jobs and justice.
Yep.
March on Washington, jobs and justice. Million Man March, jobs and justice. It's 2022, and we still got the same cry.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's almost like, how long are we going to expect, the government and a lot of these people to do stuff for us that when we got the power to do for ourselves?
Yep.
That's a good question, man. I just feel like we have the power. And that's why I was saying before, we, quote unquote, as Democrats are so passive and we don't go out and Republicans are aggressive with their approach in every aspect, but we're so passive. We're so passive. And, and I feel like we have the power, but we just don't utilize that power at all.
Yeah. And it's like the Republicans are willing to get gutted with.
Yeah.
Democrats are like, it's all about, let's be morally right and be pure. I'm like, we don't have time. Like, are you willing to get in the gutter with us and really fight, roll your sleeves? Yeah. And that's why, part of why people don't also talk about, yes, it was the movement, MLK and others who pushed hard forward. But what do you think, everybody has may have mixed feelings on LBJ, but LBJ was a gangster president.
He was.
And I want to say gangster as in the man find ways and all necessary to pull what he did. Like, it took a special time with a Southern president, right, in the 65 from Texas, who can able to swing and get certain people to get those votes and essentially some people feel like betrayed the Democrats, and those moves he made actually changed the course of history because then you had people who are conservative left to go become more Republicans, right? And you had the party shifts, both parties shift forever because of that move. So I was probably hoping a little bit that Biden was almost gangster as LBJ.
Right.
But
he had
on the outside looking in, you thought he Yeah.
I don't know.
And you know what? And I can understand why Obama wasn't as gangster as people was expecting him because, especially before his second term, like first term, you gotta get to second term. Now, second term, I wish he would have kind of, was a little more gangster with some stuff. But, I thought Biden was going to be a little more than what I've seen, But, like I said, we'll see.
No, I agree. But you guys should look it up. Look what LBJ did. Look at the steps he took to get votes for civil rights, for Voting Rights Act, 65, Civil Rights Act 64. Like, you read some of the moves, you're like, people today with media will go crazy, like, how dare he didn't make certain those moves. He did a lot of things that today media will rip apart. So, but he pulled it off. But we can go on this conversation over and over again. But when we get back, we're gonna hear from Trey. We want to get his perspective on the Republican Party, and then talk about the next generation leaders. What are steps for people to take to be involved politically, especially among African Americans. So stay tuned and be back on the Shot of E&J podcast.